last week on Legally Kidnapped.
Good evening. Our top story this week. The state of Florida is going absolutely apeshit over the death of an adopted twin and the abuse of her brother in a heavily media-exploited child abuse case. This after the adopted mother is arrested. The biological relatives who are second in line to adopt are trying to adopt the brother again. Lawmakers put forth a bill to cap damages in lawsuits against system sucks who oversaw the care of the children. A report blames the shoddy work and practices of Florida's DCF workers, going as far as calling the case a model of fatal ineptitude, pissing off Florida's lawmakers, sparking editorial after editorial after editorial, and at least one guy writing a letter to the newspaper claiming that DCF failed my family too. Then the state gets a second dose of media-exploited death in the heartbreaking case of a mother who managed to adopt her own child back from the child protective industry only to have them beaten to death by her new boyfriend. According to a former congresswoman from Washington, Arizona isn't doing enough to protect children from sex slavery. And a former welfare worker from Kansas says that illegal immigrants are abusing the system. Maine is considering changes to its child labor laws. A judge in Missouri is pissing off child welfare workers by being supportive of families. In Ohio, a child advocate argues for funding flexibility from the feds so that money tied up for the foster care system can be used for family preservation services too. Tennessee's new DCF chief promises to fix their child welfare system. President Barack Obama admits that he was bullied about his big ears and funny name when he was a kid. And Texas allows parents to paddle their kids as long as the punishment is not abusive. But of course we all know who makes that determination. The creators of The Sims is consulting with social work experts to change how social workers are depicted in the future versions of the game. According to lawyers, Facebook is to blame for 1 in 5 divorces these days, and West Virginia is giving away free kids. The Oklahoma House passes a bill requiring background checks on any adult living in a foster child's home. Connecticut works on one bill to put kids in foster families instead of group homes. Another bill requiring the child protective industry to notify fathers of children whose mothers are being investigated for child abuse. And now they want to start bringing troubled youth back to Connecticut from out-of-state group homes and treatment centers. A new study shows that women are just as likely to shake a baby as men. And a new gene test can supposedly tell if kids are going to be good at sports. China considers relaxing its one-child policy. And families in Israel are safe for the moment as a social worker strike continues. In Australia, police are under fire by child welfare agencies for using pepper spray on children. And more children are being stolen into foster care. In England this week, a shortage of foster parents is costing the Norfolk Council £10 million a year. The Christian foster parent who lost their license over their anti-gay stance gives up the fight. And a British politician wants to abolish child protection legislation. In entertainment news this week, a judge denies another delay in the lawsuit against Joe Francis, the producer of the Girls Gone Wild videos. Mel Gibson pleads no contest to domestic violence. And Charlie Sheen and Brooke Mueller come to a custody agreement over their twin boys, ultimately avoiding a court battle. In Washington, a former foster child is awarded $600,000 in a civil suit alleging ritual sexual abuse in the mid-1990s. In Ohio, a woman sues the child protective industry for not paying her foster care reimbursement for taking care of her sister's kids. And a Muslim woman sues the child protective industry for snatching her kids based on her race and her religion. A couple of adoptive parents in Colorado are in trouble after collecting $175,000 from Wisconsin in adoption subsidies to care for their 2 kids who went missing 10 years ago. And an adoptive parent from Connecticut gets busted for forcing her kid to sleep in a dog crate. A former assistant attorney general from Maine gets 16 years for possession of child porn. And in Oregon, a 71-year-old foster parent gets 6 years in jail for molesting a 6-year-old in his care. A real mother from Arizona gets busted for snatching her kids back during a supervised visit. A judge in Indiana arranges a forced adoption for a friend's daughter. And the U.S. Supreme Court refuses to hear a case regarding an Indiana couple who adopted a boy but was forced to return him to his real father last year. State agency communication policies are being reviewed in Massachusetts after police complain about the child protective industry. Senator Scott Brown's stepfather calls last month's abuse allegations a crock of bullshit and then is rebutted by his mother. In Georgia, a mom who is using a library computer to look for a job gets arrested after her baby coos. And finally tonight, a suspected hamster killer from New York walks free after being arrested for choking and throwing her little brother's hamster to the floor. For these stories and all the latest dirt on the child protective industry, visit www.legallykidnapped.com. And until next week, this is Baby LK, over and out.